So my question for all of you today is, what are you willing to give up to get closer to God? What are we willing to give up to be closer to our Father in heaven? A lot of folks are looking at their jobs, and the job is kind of the tip of the iceberg because everything is a domino behind that. If you lose the job, then all of a sudden all these other things start to fall away. This is a question we have to ask ourselves. The event that I am going to be doing October 21st is called The Reckoning, and we were talking about it the other day. Somebody says, well, you have to explain that a little bit more, because what does it mean? Why are you calling it a reckoning? And I thought, well, we're in the middle of a reckoning right now, aren't we? The whole country, all of a sudden, because of our selfishness in our lives in this country, Americans live in total excess. We can't help ourselves. We've been taught the more food, the better. The bigger the tub of whatever it is at Costco, the better. Half of it goes to waste anyway. And now that my wife and I are kind of empty nesters, I was like, I don't even know why we go to Costco. They don't make anything small enough for two people. It's all, a 55-gallon drum of pickles. What are you going to do with that, right? We live these lives in excess in every way. Binge watching movies. I have a friend, he posted something the other day. I just binged watched the whole season. I'm going to season 2. And I thought to myself, I've never binged watched anything. I've ate a whole gallon of ice cream. Now, I guess, no, I haven't, but close. But I thought, that's just the way we are. We live in excess. Everything. Makes us fatter, makes us dumber, makes us more hypnotized by this world. So the question is, what are we willing to give up in our lives that will allow us to be closer to our Father in heaven? Because all these things are distractions away from Him and His Son that is supposed to be holding the lamp unto our feet, that is going to show us the way. So what is a reckoning? I've given the example to a couple folks that if you have a job and you haven't been doing a good job, and you kind of know you haven't been doing a good job, your boss kind of knows you haven't been doing a good job, but he hasn't said anything. And then finally, one day, something happens, and the boss comes up to you and he says to you, all right, today is your day of reckoning. Either you're going to start doing things right, or you're going to have to get out of here. You're going to have to be fired. And so you take inventory of how you've been living your life, what you've been doing, the motives behind what you've been doing. Are you on time because you care, or are you constantly late because you don't care? All these little things that add up in your lives, that one day something happens. And what I've said to others also is that it's usually a disaster or a catastrophe or some fateful day when a child of yours gets killed, a parent dies early, your spouse dies, or some horrible thing that makes you really take inventory of, my God, what have I done? And I don't want to have that happen to me. So I want to have my day of reckoning now. I want to have it every day. I want to examine my day. At the end of each day, did I live a day that had nobility in it? Did I live a day where I was more patient, more kind, more loving? Charlie Chaplin said, you need power only when you want to do something harmful. Otherwise, love is enough to get everything done. Now, I wouldn't agree entirely with that, but I get where he was going with that. This word power is interesting. Most of us, we think because we're men do, there's this thing called toxic masculinity. My wife and I and this friend of ours were talking about it last night. And we think that we have to be these powerful forces in this world. And it starts in our family because most men are a man amongst children, but a child amongst men. But there's a toxic masculinity that exists amongst men that they think is a power. And they wield that mighty sword in this powerful way to do what? Create fear. Fear. I don't want to follow somebody out of fear. I want to follow somebody out of love and respect. And I sent something to my sister early this morning. It was 5 o'clock in the morning for me. It was 7 o'clock in the morning for her because she's in Texas. I said, I lean towards what would Dad do more than I lean towards what would Mom do. Some people have moms and dads and they lean towards their mom. I lean towards what would Dad do in this situation. And I said, I think I'm more like Dad, and I respect and love and honor Dad. And I said, so I lean that way. And I said, now stop crying. Because I knew already my sister would be crying as soon as I start talking about our dad who's now gone. But I realized, I thought, with that leaning towards my father and the things that he would do, how he would do it, do I do it out of this phony sense of strength and power that I may have that my dad didn't use that way? Does that make sense to that? My dad was a powerful man without having to be powerful because he was standing on the side of right. And he would simply say things to people, powerful things, but he wouldn't say them powerfully. He would just simply say them. If you listen to him on the radio, he had this sweet, quiet, soft British voice that came across, and he wasn't saying them powerfully. He was just simply saying powerful words gently, which have much more meaning when powerful things are said thoughtfully and gently. So as I'm learning, I thought, well, my wife used to call me the Hammer. That was my nickname. You don't have to be the Hammer because I was using powerful words powerfully. Does that make sense? Willfully, angrily. And I thought that was the power. It's not the power. The power is the power of stepping back, knowing that what you want to say is powerful, but how you say it is equally as powerful if you say it with love instead of the power. So I am at a stage of my life, and I think, well, it's always how I gauge what I'm going to talk about when these little things float into me. And so my wife early this morning shows me a picture of my granddaughter standing up, making these cute little chuckling noises. She's 9 months old. So then I fell back asleep for a few minutes. And I had this very interesting dream because I was thinking about power, about being a powerful individual. Because I think all men, especially, I'm only a man, so I can't tell you what a woman wants to feel, but all men want to be powerful men, whether it's power in business or just a powerful person in their convictions or whatever, so that they can use those convictions in a powerful way to do powerful things, right? The problem is we're stuck on that word power, and we forget about the fact that truth is truth, and you can whisper it. Like my dad says, you can hear truth from a dicky bird, and it can change your life. So we don't have to be these big, powerful, boisterous people. Alex Jones is a guy that's a good example of, Alex Jones talks like this, and everything is a big, powerful thing, even if he's talking about ice cream. You know what I'm saying? It's like it just sounds so powerful. But I had an interesting dream, and I don't want to analyze it, but I don't know how to analyze it, so I'm just going to tell you what it is, and then I'll kind of tell you what it meant to me, I guess. It's the way I'll do it. I dreamed that I was holding my little granddaughter, Melody, and I was at Tall Timber Ranch because I've been out there like almost every day because we're preparing for this, the Reckoning seminar. And we're cutting the trees and trimming the trees and falling the big, some big dead ones out there that are 100 feet tall. And so in my subconscious is this forest and the trees and all of the stuff that I've been dealing with. And then Jan enters into that, this little baby, this innocent, sweet little baby. And my son-in-law is this kind of courageous young man. He kind of reminds me of Joshua in the Ten Commandments. And for me, this son-in-law of mine is kind of like that Joshua character, the stone cutter, right? He's very courageous. And so in my conscience is my son-in-law. And then they found that there's some bears out there, which we've always known there's bears in the woods. So in my conscience is the forest, the baby, and the bear. And so I heard a bear noise, and I sent my son-in-law to go with his guys that are doing some construction out there and scare the bear away because I've got the baby, the innocent. Okay? I've got the baby in my arms, the innocent. And so they take off up the road, and I'm standing kind of in a little area of woods, and they take off to my left and go around the corner and go up the road, and what comes right through the trees a huge, one of these bears that you only see in your dreams that are, 20 feet tall. And he's like almost like King Kong. That's a good way to give you a visual. Coming through the trees, knocking the trees over as he's coming through the trees. And I see this and I thought, I can't call out for my son-in-law. He's too far away. This flashes through my mind. And I simply said, Lord, help me. Lord, help me. In the thought of that is, I have the innocent, okay, the baby in my arms. And as I said that, without freak out, kind of a, oh, Lord, help me, right? It was a call into the heavens. Lord, help me. I have the innocent. But it wasn't really, in other words, I thought I have the innocent, so that it was in the words, but it wasn't really words, if you know what I'm saying. It was like a call from the soul to the Lord in heaven. And as I said that, the bear was coming, and he literally turned and just went the other way. It was like the hand of God said, no, bear, that way. Not like it didn't destroy the bear. The bear is just a bear. But the bear somehow intuitively knew also, no, not this one. And the bear went the other way. And I sat there in my conscious state and I said, there is the power. The power of God controls everything in the universe. And I thought to myself, okay, there's my consciousness. What am I willing to give up to be closer to God? I'm willing to give up my power. That is really no power at all. All the hammer, the power of the nickname, the hammer, that was more damaging, smashing all the thumbs holding the nail instead of hitting the nail on the head. I just hit the nail on the head with my consciousness of that power is a worldly power. It is a damaging, willful power that doesn't have any God in it. It is without God. It is a wicked force that, like Charlie Chaplin says, when you use power, you're only using harmful power. When you use that soft-spoken, honest love, telling somebody what you think, having it flow through you from your heart to the other person, then that is a true power. It's a godly power that doesn't even come from you. And it's not even your power. It's just simply the truth. And the truth sets people free. If we are to be freer of souls, the key that sets them free is to not be willful, not be angry, not try to do it with power, with will, with strength, right? The false power, but with the strength of God, the power of God that is not your power at all. It's actually you are delivering it as a piece of PVC that the clear water flows through. You're a piece of pipe, and the pipe it's doing its job. I want to just do my job. I want to get my will out of the way. I just need to be a piece of pipe so God can flow through me to that other person and give them the nourishment they need, that clean, pure water that is refreshing to the soul. Now, my wife says to me the other day, I just want to thank you for thinking of me, being thoughtful of me. And in my life, it was, I'm the king. I'm the one with the power. This is my castle. It's my way or the highway. And that was kind of how I was. I was a male chauvinist pig. And I didn't really give much thought to it because I kind of liked it. I'm the king. You're smaller than me. You'll do as I say, or you'll have hell to pay. Actually, I was the one that had hell to pay. But I come to the realization one day, it's like, wait a second. Like I said before, she is God's child. God put her in my life to nurture her, to love her, to learn with her about life, to learn with her about life. And so it took 61 years for her to actually say thank you to me for one time that she actually truly recognized me being thoughtful about her in something that was kind of a large matter, buying a piece of property. I just said, what do you think? And she didn't really want to do it. So I said, okay, well, let's just not buy it then. I got my will out of it. And guess what? That's probably the way it is supposed to be with this piece of property. We weren't supposed to buy it, but the more she said no, the more I said, I'm the hammer, we're going to do what I say. And then I would have ended up getting that stupid thing, and I would have been a slave to it. Does that make sense to anybody? We get things willfully that we want, and then we become a slave to that thing. So we don't own it, it owns us. And so I just learned how to back off. I'm going to put my will on the altar of my Father in heaven, and I'm going to listen to his will. His will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And so, boy, my life got much lighter, much lighter. Once you can realize that your will, I've said this before too, your will is the Antichrist, just so you know. Because your will is not his will. And if we're supposed to work his will, then our will is not the will of God, not the will of Christ, but our will. And we are fallen creatures. So if there's such a thing as an Antichrist, and it may be very subtle, it's 7 billion of us, because we are all willful, angry people coming from the wrong place, and we are literally the legion of the will of the devil, because we are willful creatures. We don't even know it, because most of us are asleep at the wheel, willfully asleep at the wheel. We're being driven in a direction that is not back to heaven. So I just look at my will anymore and I go, naughty, naughty, naughty. You're a naughty little boy, aren't you? And I look at how my father, if I look back at how my father's done some of these, air quotes, exorcisms, when he's dealing with the will of a person that is trying to hold them prisoner, right? My dad will just simply speak to this thing, this will, this lower nature, this dark side of the person, speak to it like it's a little naughty boy, a little naughty child. That brings me to this whole thing about the will and what are we willing to give up. Isn't that funny that the will and willing are kind of the same word with a little extra on there? If I am willing to put my will on the altar of Christ, to be able to accept his will into my heart and stop being willful, I guess that's what they call being born again, because at that moment, when you stop being a willful person, you are now an obedient person. Thank you, Diane. We must be obedient. We must love the Lord with all our heart, our mind, and our soul. Now, is that easy to do? Nobody ever said it would be easy to do. That's why God gives you about 100 years to figure it out. But along the way, you start looking at your life and you have your kind of little moment of reckoning of like, oh my God, what have I done with my life? And you can even have a halfway decent life. You can say, the world thinks I'm happy. The world thinks I have a great life. We call that social media life. A guy posted something the other day. He was smoking a cigar, standing on the other side of the Hudson, looking at the beams of light from 9/11. He says, this is my life. He goes, ... Unfortunately, it's not really my life. It's my social media life that I show the world. You wouldn't want to know about my true life. And I thought, isn't that true? Isn't that the way it is? We show the best angle of the best plate of food we've ever made or eaten, the best angle of our faces or best lit piece, or we doctor it up. We show the best cars, the best life, the best everything. You only see the best. And then the reality is, what is life really like behind that social media fake life? Which reminds me of a story. This man got married to a woman, and there was a picture of her, kind of a pretty woman. And then he got a divorce and sued her after they were married for a couple of days because he saw her without her makeup on and realized that she had cheated him. She had Spanx on to hold the fat in and makeup on to, my dad says made up like a dog's dinner. So the point is that that's kind of life. It's this fake life, the Orange County housewives' lives of, fake everything, and but they're just unhappy, horrible lives. And then you see it playing out in the news where they're getting in trouble for all these things and going to jail and divorces and children committing suicide. And you're like, well, that whole TV world is fake. As a matter of fact, another interesting thing, you guys know who J-Lo is, right? The actress, and Ben Affleck. And a friend of mine posted a picture of them kissing this morning, early this morning. Well, somebody says they're together now. But he says, I believe this is probably PR for a movie or something they're selling. Because you never know, just like the media, you never know the truth. You're being manipulated. The manipulation that is going on in our world today, if you have God's intuition, God's little knowing in your heart, then you can see right through this crap. Right through it in a heartbeat. We watch the news and we don't even need to hear the commentator anymore. We're like, that's a lie. And then out of the commentator's mouth that we may trust, this is an absolute lie. Thank you for agreeing with me. Instead of me agreeing with them, now our intuition is showing us, we can see right through it. So what's happening is as steel sharpens steel, one man sharpens another. And we are being sharpened. I believe that everybody who's listening to this radio show or this program is being sharpened. You are supposed to hear things better and clearer, see things more clearly. In other words, I see this person and they look real nice, but I don't look at their body and their face and their clothes. I look right into their eyes, right into the soul, and all they have to do is open their mouth and they'll reveal who they really, truly are. I said one time, this woman who I used to work with, who's absolutely beautiful, completely made in a doctor's office. She is sassy, pretty, runs a big business, and she always wants to compliment me. And I've said this before, but it's worth bringing back. Men have power of strength, right? That's that false power. Her power is to beguile men, is to compliment them and make them feel uplifted. Because doesn't a man like to be uplifted by a woman? Doesn't he like to feel good about himself around a woman? So she always comes up to me and says, oh, I love your hair. Here comes Alan with that beautiful hair. And then she goes on and on and on about my hair. And you know, she's so glad I'm here. And so she, anyway, after she left, I said to my friend something to the effect of, don't believe a word she says. All that you just saw right there was a bunch of crap. It's to disarm me from seeing through the manipulation. Because how can you say no to somebody that loves you, that manipulates you, that makes you feel better? Men, how can you say no to the woman that, well, maybe has sex with you? Because if you say no or speak up, maybe that gets taken away. You'd rather go along to get along. And then that's just the beginning of a hellish relationship that goes for a lifetime for some people. Go along to get along. So what I do now is when I see somebody coming up to me that wants to give me all these compliments, I just take a step back. Take a step back because there's something going on there. I totally understand now how my dad used to say, beware of those who come bearing gifts. Because that's a manipulation. Nothing wrong with a gift. There's nothing wrong with a gift. But one lady one time wanted to donate a large amount of money to my dad, and he felt that she was wanting something more from him. And he says, no, you need to take that money back. And if you want to donate it, you donate it anonymously. And you know what? She donated a fraction of it because there was more to it. So even doing something as good as donating money to a church can be a manipulation. Can I get my name on the church? Can I get a stone with my name on it somewhere? Wanting credit? Don't we all want credit? Don't we all want credit for everything? Or is it better to just do something because it's right and walk away? Don't expect anything back. That's called love. So I'm always very leery of those that give me lots and lots and lots of compliments. I know how to take a compliment now. Thank you very much. That's it. A lot of it's on me. It's like 50-50. Person comes with too many compliments. Now the other half is me. Should I say, well, thank you very much. And then that's it. Or should I get high on it and say, yeah, I knew I was right about that one. I knew that people would like that. So I listen to every one of these talks, and I just say to myself, boy, I really have to sharpen myself, because the one talent that I do have is being funny and making an awkward moment not awkward by levity, by self-deprecating humor. I've sharpened that to an incredible skill. I can make somebody who's feeling uncomfortable before they're going to be on a radio show comfortable in just a couple of words, couple of minutes of just having a little talk with them. I can disarm them, because most people feel like they're going to be harpooned. Well, this is being recorded. What are you going to say? What if I say something that's dumb? You know, you can make mistakes because people can be forgiving. Nobody's perfect. But if people trust that you have an honest heart, they're going to go the distance with you. So what we have to learn is to not put all of our treasures and all the things that we have and adorning ourselves with all these, you see some people have their trophy room. I have my trophy wall. I have a wall called my trophy wall, which is a bunch of silly little fun things from my life. But woven into these little funny, silly things from being in South America, and I have a little pot that was hand carved. I paid $3 for it. Just silly things. I have pictures of people from my life that I have a wonderful relationship with, where we have built a trusting relationship. And to me, I see in their face someone who trusts, AKA loves me, right? Because isn't trust and love the same thing? You put your love or your trust into somebody. So if we put our treasures in heaven, and truth and trust, honesty, dignity, character, all those things are what are the treasures of heaven. And in this world, our treasures are just silliness. They're just hunks of steel and wood and things we've, accomplished, plaques on the wall that mean nothing. And when you die, you know what happens to those plaques on the wall? A lot of times they just get taken out of the frame, because the frame is worth more than the plaque that is in it. And they end up in the Goodwill, yeah. After we're gone, all these accomplishments of our lives, if they're accomplishments that build us up, are worth nothing. But if we take people to the door and let them knock on the door to their Creator, and then they pass through on their own, and we go back for another soul, that's what people will remember. My father's a good example of that. His life was helping free the souls of people. He led them to the doorway that is the door to the other side, of which he finally took himself on April 22nd, 2021. And I was explaining to somebody the other day, they said, when did your father die? And I said, he died in April. My dad was sitting in his easy chair, which I think most of us have an easy chair in our house. And he looked like he was meditating. And I found a picture the other day when he was meditating, when he was at my house one day. And there's this sweetness on his face, this look of contentment, of just, do not disturb, I'm with the Lord, if you know what I'm saying. And when he passed over to the other side. But what I added to that is, with dignity. My dad looked the same as he did every day, just sitting in the chair, and passed away, moved to the other side, to the other realm. And I truly believe that. And I'll say it till the day I die. Good for you, Dad. You made it. So I have not cried for my dad, because I can't. I just can't. I know my dad left this world to go and be with his Creator, with his Heavenly Father. And I want, if I have a day when I die, not if, when, I want to go that same way, where I go out with dignity. Because he was 93 years old, and I know every body comes with an expiration date. Every one of our bodies. If you turn us over and look at our rear end, there's a little expiration date. It's very hard to find. Some people it says 666. But what am I willing to give up to be closer to my Heavenly Father? Boy, you really got to start. Start wherever you have to, but if you could start with that nasty will, that anti-Christ. God sent his son Jesus to help us find the way. He sent a lot of his children to help us find the way. My dad was another person he sent to help us find the way. But my dad, I can tell you right now, I've seen him thousands of times catch his will before it escaped and jumped into somebody else. Because that's what happens. That's the virus of the soul, is the willfulness. And it jumps into people from person to person. It jumps across. I'm willful with you. I impose my will on you. I might as well have given you the injection of the dark will. Does this make sense to anybody? The dark virus. So Fabian says, it's really an entity. It's really not you. Of course it's an entity. It's a dark side. It's the dark entity that is living within, that we've let into our life. And I think that's part of the design of the Creator, because there is no perfect human beings except Jesus. And he sent Jesus with a specific job, okay? But he sent us here, each one of us, with this spirit that we're supposed to love, appreciate, and protect. Now, as we're young people, we don't know what love is. We don't understand this spirit and realize that there's also a dark one that slowly gets in and builds, just like a weed. Have you ever planted your garden? Where do those weeds come from? You didn't plant them. Where the hell do those come from? They come from hell, of course. No, they come from, they're just built in. They're in the dirt. The trees, yes, the trees do drop their things, and the birds drop their droppings, and in the bird droppings, that's life, right? They blow in with the wind. That's the dark spirit too. But it's up to us to recognize, there's weeds that inhabit this body, and we've got to protect this spirit. And the first thing we can do is recognize that is not us. That is from the other world. That is a weed, you might say, to the soul. A lot of these things are hidden until the mouth opens up and the will spits something out. Back to my dad. I've seen my dad thousands of times start to get a little bit angry. And I remember this even as a little boy. Start to get angry at my mother, or something that's going on, whatever it may be. Catch himself. And almost like, you sit up in your chair like you're going to say, you dirty rotten. But then before you open your mouth, you sit back in the chair and you go, no. There's a better way to handle this. Not going to let that dark side have its way. Be willful. Inject its darkness into somebody else. And so I can look back in my life now, like I said to my sister this morning in that text I sent her, and I go, what would Roy do? What would my dad do? He's my dad. What would my dad do on this earth? Father in heaven, what should I do? And then I just be patient, because just like the silly piece of property we were going to buy, willfully, I can buy the property. I can buy it. It's 10% down, owner carry. I got 10% of what they're wanting for it. I could just buy it. Let's just buy it. Done deal. My wife is the voice of reason in my life. No, let's get the termite inspection. Let's get the well checked out. Let's get the foundation looked at. Let's check and see what the thing is in the county assessor's office. Let's do this. Let's do that. I'm like, all right, you go ahead and do that. Yeah, I'm buying that property. I looked at one point and I said, I'm buying it. It's going to be my property. And she knows it's funny because I'm going to be willful, right? I can do it. I'll buy what the hell I want. Get out of my way, woman. That's that willful, powerful, toxic male thing that most men have, right? The guy sitting next to me, I saw something sweet with him. He caught his willfulness in the midst of almost destroying his life. Am I right?
Yeah. It was funny because it was with my relationship with my wife, and talk about willful. I had to be number one and nothing else mattered, and it was all about me, and I didn't even realize it. And then we were split up, and then one day, like, you know how you load a computer and it goes boop, 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 boop. God turned the light on, and I saw everything about me, and told her, hey, we need to go have breakfast. And she thought I was going to go, and blame her like I always did for everything that was wrong with me. And I blew her away, and we have the best relationship now.
What did you say to her at that breakfast?
I told her that I have a problem with getting attention from women. Like I had to have it. I didn't act on it, but it was still wrong. It's the same as cheating. I didn't realize that. even after I said all that to her, until just recently we were talking, and she's all, "Don't you see that as cheating?" And I'm like, well, I didn't sleep with anybody. And then I was like, yeah, you know what? It is. And, I'm sorry for that. So I told her, I'm sorry for always blaming you for all my problems. And I laid it out how I was with this problem with wanting women's attention, and told her how much I loved her and that I was sorry. And, it's taken many years. She still is affected by it. And she still doesn't trust me. And, I wish that I would have clearly seen things earlier and stayed back on the path, because I've been listening to your dad since I was 25 years old, or before that.
How old are you now?
55. I went off. It was funny, like, when all that stuff I realized, it wasn't just with her. It was just, I was cherry picking what I wanted from your dad. And there was things he said. I remember walking out of a seminar one time and, was devastated. And it wasn't because I was mad at him. It was because I realized he was right. And I just had a hard time accepting it. Anyways, she finally she tried to meditate. She tried to meditate one time, and she said something was choking her. She couldn't breathe, and she had to stop. And so I've been talking to her about it, and I just tell her, you need to just be calm. God is not going to let that bad side do anything to you. You have to have faith. You need to just be patient. And then now, just recently, and she wanted to come today, but she's got some issues with her stomach and couldn't come. But she says, yeah, I see I'm two different entities, basically, herself and this other thing. She needs some help. And that's why she's wanted to come. I don't know if she'll talk.
You know what I want to tell you? If she needs some help, you're that guy that's going to help her.
I'm trying.
Well, and all you have to do is be that right example. And like that little thing you said to her, God is not going to let that evil thing do any harm to you. Right. It's going to do everything it can to scare any one of us. Scare us, choke us, like that, this whole choking thing. The idea is, at that moment in time, tell her, say, Father, help me.
That's what
she's got to reach out to her Father in heaven.
Cry out to God, cry out to Jesus. Oh, here's something I want to talk about, something that I went through. So I meditate every night. I don't meditate in the morning because I'm not a morning person. And then by the time I get going, it's time to go to work. And then sometimes at lunch I do, but at night is when I really take time and be still. And, you're talking about this willful thing and all this, and I know that's just the dark side that tries to convince us to be willful. So one night I'm meditating, and this has happened before, and I just feel this thing just holding me. And, it's like, I don't know, it's just like 70,000 things going through my mind. I see people, I see faces, they change. They'll come up and be this evil, scary looking thing. None of it scares me. I just watch it. And then, but like sometimes it's just is holding me, and I can feel like, and I know it, I realize it, and I'm watching it. And so this one night, then I ended up going to bed, and I felt this holding thing going on. It was after I'd fallen asleep. So I'm like, okay, I'm not dreaming. I know what's going on. I'm not dreaming. And then this whole dark thing came over me, and I started crying out, by the power of God, I rebuke you, or by Jesus, I rebuke you. And I just kept saying that over and over and over, because I could not move. I couldn't wake up or get up or sit up, nothing. And then I heard, it sounded like my wife, are you all right? Are you all right? All of a sudden, this black thing lifted up, and I sat up, and I was like, whoa, and I know this thing's here, and it's a sticky booger. I don't know if, like, one of the questions I want to ask, does that demon of doubt, this dark thing, ever leave you alone? Or do you just see it for what it is and you just don't react to it anymore?
That's a good question, because it will never leave you alone, as long as you stay vulnerable in its world. You are in its world. Right. And the closer you become to your Father in heaven, as I said earlier, what are you willing to give up to be closer to God? Then you stand in God's light and it cannot enter. Right. So you have to do nothing. It just cannot enter. Now, it'll lurk around. It'll lurk around when you are, maybe even sleeping, because if you sleep too deep, have you ever seen somebody that sleeps that deep where you can't even wake them up? Yeah. They're not even in this world at that point. They're somewhere off at God knows where. You must be able to find a place where your consciousness never sleeps. And like you said, you knew what was going on, and you were able, your spirit was able to call out to Father in heaven, right?
Yeah.
This is part of our earthly journey, is to be able to recognize the enemy. Because if you don't know who the enemy is, then how do you call him out and say, hey, out of here? Like if somebody comes in my house and they're not a friend, what are they? They're an intruder, an enemy. I don't know what they're doing here. So I have to recognize the enemy. And so what happens is, through that awareness, through reaching to higher ground, being willing to give up your earthly, the things that tie you, like the blimp. There it is, this gigantic blimp, and it has all these little strings holding it down, and it almost looks silly. How can those little strings hold that gigantic blimp? But those little strings do. Look at the power of a spider's web, right? You ever reach out and touch a big spider web? It's like, wow. And that sticky thing you were talking about, it's kind of like the black widow spider. It spins its web in your life, and then you try to move towards God, and guess what? It's holding you down from all of your sins, all of your sinning, all of your sin nature, all of the things. Of course, then it uses guilt, and each string is another one of the tactics that the devil gets to use. God only has one, the truth. The truth will set you free from all those strings that are holding us, the blimp that is supposed to rise, that is holding us earthbound. All of God's power comes from the truth. All of his strength is the truth. The truth sets you free. It's the light. So I don't like how I said God's power, because God is all powerful, right? But all of the beauty of what God has to offer is simplicity. And so my wife and I'll tell you a little story again. This is all real time. This is stuff that's happened in the last few days. My wife and I were thinking about buying this property that we went literally till 5 minutes before it was ours to back out. And at the very end, I said to my wife, I said, what do you think? And she wants to give me all these lists so that I can intellectually appreciate her decision. But see, what I am coming to understand more is that my intuition is what guides me now. Not the facts, not the figures, not the science, not the scientists, not the good speakers and talkers and books and all that. My intuition, which is so simple and it's so beautiful. When you tap into your intuition, your inner knowing. So I said to her, what do you think? Because she really was trying to be, God bless you, Jan, for being so respectful. She was trying to respect the fact that I really wanted to buy that property. I'm telling everybody, we're buying that property. You see that property over there? I'm going to own that property. You want to rent that property? Maybe I can sell you that property. I mean, it's like, I'm telling all my friends, I've got that place bought already in my head, but Jan comes to me and she says, I said, what do you think? And she says, well, this. I said, no, put that away. Put that away. What do you think? And she says, well, maybe because of all the things we've determined, if he would take a lot less for it, it would still be worth buying. And I said, okay, well, let's make an offer of a lot less. And then let it be God's choice whether we get it or not. If we get it, we got a heck of a deal. If we don't get it, we weren't supposed to have it. So we wouldn't be a slave to it. Because this place, as much as I could fix it all with my magic finger that points and say, hey, go fix that, contractor, bulldozer, whatever, plumber, go fix that. I got a magic finger. It's amazing. But you know what? It would be a huge distraction to my journey right now. Does God want me to have that? That's the biggest question of all. Lord, what do you want for me? Should I buy this? I finally asked him. You know what he told me, Jan, by the way? He says, you're not buying that property. So I knew before you said, so hold on. This the moment I asked you, she says, when did that happen? The moment I asked her, I said, I'm going to ask Jan what he thinks. And God said into my soul, actually, how do I say this? I had a knowing that we're not going to buy that property. And so I said, what do you think? That's why I says, it doesn't matter. Just tell me what you think. So she says, well, listen, it was $299. I'll just say, she says, let's offer $259 and see what else. $40,000 less. Now we had already offered from $340 to $299, and it was an owner carry. It was it was like one of those things. Easy here, just take the drug, but then the drug owns you, right? You're now addicted. And even worse, it's funny, this worse addicted, it's actually better you're owned by it, because addicted is a science word, right? I'm addicted, but actually let's just change that to drugs own you. And who owns the drugs? The pusher. Who's the pusher? The devil. Okay. So I knew, if you didn't say to me what you said, which was, let's go ahead and just make a lower offer and then leave it up to God. And I said, okay, let's do that. And she smiled at me and she was so happy that I wasn't like, no, that's not enough. We're going to offer more. I really want this place, and I didn't really want it. I just want what's right. I want what God wants for me. And if I get what God wants for me, then I'm going to have what God wants for me. Isn't that the only thing we should all want? And whatever that is. If it's just to be, have a pair of sandals and a robe and, like Jesus walking along, what did Jesus own? Never you ever talk about his mansion in the desert out there? No, he was a carpenter. He had a skill so that he could earn a little bit of money to be able to eat and what have you. But more importantly, he followed his Father. He was obedient to his Father in heaven. And I love kind of the stories that I'm learning now as I'm getting older. I'm starting to look deeper about how he loved his mother and her sacrifice, and his father that wasn't really his father, because he probably at some point was told the story that you're an immaculate conception. But he loved and honored his mom and his dad. And so it's just so interesting as you grow up and mature and you start to see things so differently instead of fairy tales. The Bible, when I was a kid, had all these wonderful fairy tales of stories. You could call them fairy tales, or stories of things that you couldn't imagine them being real. Your mind didn't have the depth and understanding to be able to really say, these things really happened. We're here. We started with Adam and Eve, not monkeys, not slime in a pond. So as we grow older and more mature and more understanding, and we can let go of our will and our anger and learn how to have forgiveness is what we all need. And men learn how to deal with our wives with proper love, not lust, not willfulness, not I want, not I am. The great I am is the Father in heaven. But we all, men especially, want to be the great I am in this world. I am what I am, says the man. God says, you're nothing. You're nothing, and you're not going to be anything with that attitude, young man. But God is all forgiving. He lets us be idiots right to the very end. Look at the guy on the cross next to Jesus. The guy was an idiot right to the very end, and then he woke up and went, I'm guilty. He's not. Stop it. He found his voice at the last moment before he died. Not that we want to wait that long, because that would be pretty dumb, wouldn't it?
One of the things I learned, I've been shown, can't say I learned, but meditating, I remember it's kind of messed up it's good, but how I come to find about your dad was through a friend. But I was like, doing drugs and praying every night that I need something to help me. I knew that if I kept going, I was going to die. And I was probably like 20 years old, 21. But now that I'm meditating, it's different. And like I'll be meditating and it's, like I said, it's just a slideshow of everything can be thrown at me. And some of the stuff just makes me laugh. Like I'm watching it and it'll be funny. And I'm like, holy crap, should I be laughing or what? But I'll just laugh out loud while I'm meditating. You know, and then sometimes it's overwhelming where that holding down thing happens to me. And that's happened to me before when I was sleeping. But it's weird. Like, whenever I dream, I almost always know I'm dreaming.
Let me just say something, because I was looking at while you were talking about that dream that I had, and I thought to myself, the devil, he doesn't have anything. He only has what we have and what we give him, like the Taliban right now didn't have much, but all of a sudden Biden has given him all the weapons in the world. I mean, think of that. They literally have the most valuable helicopters that are war helicopters, and they have thousands of military vehicles and thousands of guns and ammunition and everything. That's like what we do. We are that dumb as well to give the devil, the dark side, all the ammunition he needs and all the things he needs to enter into our psyche. Like for me, the big bear, because we had bears at the ranch, the forest, because I was out there. Those are my thoughts, right? And he tried to scare me with my own conscious little things that are out of my own arsenal, you might say, my own store of thoughts. And he tried to create this scenario and this dreamscape. But what I had was the ultimate antidote for that type of evil, which was the cry out to my Father in heaven, for your sake, Mike, who comes about 100 miles to be here, your protection. It's funny that you said I'm not a morning person. You meditate before you go to bed. This could be a saving grace in many ways for you, because you go to sleep with this consciousness, right? Imagine if you didn't do that and you just went to bed with your anger and your built up frustrations of the day. Imagine how many more bits of arsenal and bits of, tools the devil has to come at you with. So for those who don't actually understand or recognize, that meditation is a tool been given to us as a lightning rod, kind of a protection tool, right? That when the devil comes a-calling, we have the ability to call on the power of our Father in heaven, which is more powerful than all of what man has or the devil has in this realm. The devil has zero strength without what we give to him through being angry each and every day, angry at little things, angry at, like I said to my wife the other night, I was sitting there working on a project on my computer, on my laptop, in our big easy chair, and I didn't even have the television on. I'm just quietly sitting there working on something that I need to get accomplished here. And this fly goes, and I'm like, get out of here, right? I'm all by myself in the house. And I start working again. And this guy was attacking me. And I could literally see a little devil's face in my mind. I'm like, this is a devil fly. I said to my wife, I go, there is an evil fly in this house. But it wanted me to get angry, right? Everything in this world is designed to pull you away from God. This world that we're in, you can either see it and then not react. It has no power or strength at all. And just go, okay, I'm not going to get angry. You're just a fly. Get my fly swat out, or get my little salt shooter fly swat thing. Have you guys seen that, by the way? I'm getting one. Anyway, but I look at this, everything's trying to tempt us. The more aware you are, the more you're going to see all the zombies, like in a video game, coming out of the walls. They're trying to trick in every way they can to get you to get angry, or to pull your consciousness away from the target, right? The target being, I'm on a journey back to my Father in heaven, my heavenly Father. That's my target. I'm on my journey, and everything wants to pull me off. Narrow is the path, so it's easy to get pulled off of it. But I don't even want to get angry at anything. I just now see it for what it is. I say, oh, there's the anger. There it is, raising its ugly little head. And guess what? The more I am conscious of it, the less it can affect me. And then I sleep better. Everything is better. Everything gets better when you are not in the swamp. And the more you drain the swamp, the more you start to see the swamp creatures. And what do? They run for hiding, don't they? They run for the bushes because they don't want to be seen for what they are. The swamp is full of muck and monsters and creatures that are created by us. created by us. And I'm so happy. I'm so, how do I say it? Let's see. My dad calls it nachas, this Yiddish word, which means warmth of the heart. I have a warmth of the heart that I am finally seeing life more clearly, seeing life through not my eyes, because we all have eyes, but we all see things differently, but through my inner ability to see beyond what my eyes see. What is that saying? I had eyes, but I could not see. Of course we have eyes and we can see, but there's a deeper meaning behind that. Seeing beyond this worldly universe, I guess you might say, the parallel universe, like my dad has the book. There is a parallel universe. There's a spiritual realm, and then there is the earthbound realm. And I don't want to be like Gulliver's Travels. It's another good example, like the blimp. You know, I remember as a kid, you guys have probably all seen the Gulliver's Travels. The Lilliputians, they tied him down with all these little stupid strings, but there were so many strings that he couldn't get up. That's us. We get tied down by our sin, by the sin being, again, missing the mark, by our foolishness is a better way to even say it. Because so many things are just denying the truth, just denying things that we know to be true, denying the little cruelties that we do to our husband or wife, our spouse, our friends, little cruelties that up there's another spider's web that's just been stuck to the wall. And as we build our own web that, believe it or not, keeps us a prisoner, we're building our own web. If you could see the spiritual web that you're creating, dark spirit, you would go, wow, how am I going to ever escape this? Well, guess what? The light of your Father in heaven, your heavenly Father, that light of truth disintegrates it. It doesn't even exist. It only exists in the devil's realm where we live. We live in his realm. So we have these bad dreams. We have these sleeps that are interrupted by some dark spirit that is just waiting for us to fall into that deep, deep sleep so where they can slip right into us. And tomorrow's day, that's why it's a good idea for maybe you to meditate in the morning, Mike, is in your sleep, if these things are happening to you, start your day. Just look, it takes a few minutes, right? Couple of minutes. Well, and don't even get stuck on the 7. Maybe it takes 5. It's just a few minutes, right? Just a consciousness. Because at some point, I've told this story before. I was driving out to the ranch one time. It's about a 25-minute drive from where we live. And I thought, boy, I wish I could just find that meditative state while I'm driving. But I thought, I can't possibly do that because who's going to be driving the car? I got to drive. I got to stay conscious. And all of a sudden, I just thought, well, I just wish I could be conscious. And I just went, and I just kind of was in this tunnel of consciousness. And I drove all the way to the ranch. And I was like, what just happened? How did I get here? It was just like I just was conscious and no thoughts were bombarding me. I was in this stream of consciousness where I was just being conscious of God's presence in my life. That's probably the best way to put it. Like a God consciousness. I believe my dad walked his life like that from the time he was probably in his late 30s.
That's what true meditation is that state where we're aware of him, which allows us to be aware all around us.
That's the bubble of protection. I remember my dad said one time, I went home and I told him about, I don't know what it was. Honestly, it didn't even matter because I have no memory of what it was. But I said, this happened and that happened. And he said, son, you've gone outside of God's protection because you didn't listen to what I've said and you didn't listen to your conscience. And I was like, so you can go outside of this thing? Like I've said before, I felt very entitled to God's protection because I was Roy Master's son. I'm the chosen, right? I honestly felt that way. And of course, God slapped me upside the head a few times. The reality is that God gives his love to who he chooses, who deserves it, and what have you. You can't just take it. You don't just get it. That's entitled, right? So when I was a young kid, innocently, I remember as being a little boy, I remember knowing my dad is a special man. God bless him. I love my dad. He's a special man. I got it. I totally got my dad, that he helped people with their problems. And even though I could go, wow, how could people get so crazy, Didn't understand how that could happen. But I thought, well, he's my dad. I'm just going to be a good person. I'm going to be a good person. It isn't I have to actually work for it. I'm going to be a good person. That was that kind of dumb little kid, right? Until one day when I was, a teenager and things started going wrong and I started having to experience the real world, girls and money and business. And that's, of course, I have a 21-year-old son right now who's just getting to that phase of life where he's starting to face the reality of adulthood, bills, girls for the boys and boys for the girls, and all the things that go along with these traps in life. And fortunately, he kind of bypassed the girl thing pretty quick. He saw that, all right, because his kind of Jewish nature to make money, thought girls are a waste of money. He wanted to make that money. So he kind of like, all right, I'll go on a date or whatever, but I'm not getting involved in some relationship. But I felt, and I think a lot of people that have become Roybots, that my dad had that term. My dad's the one that said, I don't want you to be a Roybot. They become entitled, like this entitlement. Well, I know what's going on because I've got the meditation, I've got Roy Masters, I've got, whatever. And we'll call people in religion Bible thumpers as well, right? They will thump you over the head with the Bible. And then there's the Roybot type people that will thump you over the head with Roy Masters. And then there's the people that also feel entitled in life, and they will just thump you over the head with their entitlement. And you just look at them and go, what the heck? There's no humility there at all. So, of course, God finds a way of letting us humble ourselves, or while we find our own way of humbling ourselves. We can get stuck in that doldrum. Doldrum is a place on the ocean where there's no wind, and if you have a sailboat and there's no wind, you go nowhere, right? And so we get stuck in the doldrum of life, going nowhere, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome, until one day we wake up and go, wow, I am a real fool. That is the beginning. That is the beginning, is recognizing that you have to be willing to be a fool before you can be a master. And Jordan Peterson said that, and I thought, wow, that is really the truth. Because people are so arrogant. People are so prideful. Their will and their pride, that is what they truly are made of, doesn't want to admit that they don't know. They want to really try and show you how smart they are with every Bible verse they quote or something they memorized.
Talking about your dad seeing clarity, you know how there's people that come to the seminars and he's told them, hey, you've been coming here for years and you're not getting it. You're just wasting your time and money. Well, it was something about me, and it's something that's gone on from growing up. But like I'd be at the seminar and I'd go to talk, and then I'd just be crying, and and I don't know why that happened, but I kind of do now. But I remember I called in, and your dad says, I recognize your voice, and you're the one that cries this and that. And he says, Mike, you're wasting your time. And he told me, you're not getting it. And man, I'll tell you what, I hit the floor. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me. One of the things that's funny is when I was a little kid, I'm talking 5, 6 years old, when I'd go to bed, I'd close my eyes, and I'd watch these little light patterns as I was little, and I didn't know what it was. But then all of a sudden I'd feel like so distant from everything, and just like this security type of thing. And, I did that all the time, and I couldn't wait to go to bed to do that. And then, whatever traumas happened, that I lost that.
Talking about return to innocence. So here you come, returning back to innocence.
I don't know how I was so connected with God as a little kid. My parents, my mom, she would watch, all the Moses and Ben-Hur and all those shows. And I remember watching one of the shows, and he would say, God, give me the power to do this certain thing. So I was in the backyard, and we had this cedar fence. And I said, God, give me the power to jump this fence. And I jumped up to grab it, and I got cedar splinters and immediately knew that I was tempting God. And I think I was maybe 6 or 7 years old. And I still remember that. And and I never did it again.
It's funny because I did a radio show with a gentleman named Jeff Griffin on Wednesday or so of the last week or so, but he said that he saw Peter walk on water when Jesus said, "Come to me, Peter." And he says, of course, when Peter took his eye off of Jesus, he became aware again of the waves crashing and he fell into the water. But so this friend of mine, he said, when he was a young man, he thought, maybe I can walk on water, right? Because we want to test God, like you said, is using God's name in vain. This is a good example of it. Can I walk on water? And of course you can't, so you fall right in. But see, when we are young and immature, we think we can tap into that supernatural power that God is saving for a purpose and a time and a place. David and Goliath. There's this gigantic monster of a man, and David has that one slingshot and that one rock to be able to, hit him in the temple, whatever, and he does. That's tapping into that supernatural at that moment. One of those kind of examples where when you really need God, that's when you should reach out. Not for silly, stupid things like this, as you were talking about, tempting God. We may have one chance in our life to be able to do something that is truly a miracle, you might say. The example is in my dream, I knew that I couldn't, of myself, I could do nothing with this gigantic King Kong of a bear. And so I thought, I've got to reach out to my Father in heaven. These are signs telling me that this is where truly being saved is reaching out to your Father in heaven.
What I notice with dreams is when you're pondering things, a lot of times you will get an answer through the dream. And you were pondering this whole idea of men and power and how should a man really be. And I think that was the answer for you, was you were faced protecting your little daughter. You had no other way to go, and God showed you that's where the power is.
So yeah, I mean, I guess we never know really at the end of the day whether God is, allowing some thoughts to come together to show you a thing, or does the devil conjure up these interesting situations? But see, even in your dreams, if you have a consciousness, you use the gift of your Father in heaven, because to me, it's a gift.
In the Bible, God often uses dreams to communicate principles and things to people.
I've had dreams that come true, and they show me things before they happen. And then it's confirmation about something that's going to be changing.
Maybe God's telling you not to be so willful, like instead of you trying to save your niece, you called on Him to have faith in Him taking care of your willfulness.
It's funny, we have to be honest with ourselves, don't we? Most of us are not honest with ourselves. How can we be honest with our spouse if we aren't even honest with ourselves? How many people have heard my dad say, of myself I can do nothing? Raise your hands, okay? Every one of us. And I used to think, okay, of myself I can do nothing. All of a sudden now I'm like, wow, of myself I can truly do nothing. Because I want to use my Father's will in heaven, on earth as is in heaven. And I have to recognize that my will is literally born of the dark side. So I cannot use my will. It's not my will, it's the dark side's will. If God wants to give me strength, He will place it in me, and I will do what David did in David and Goliath, or Hercules, or whatever it is. You'll draw on a strength of where you will not know anything you'll even say, I can't do this, but that's only because your brain's trying to make you doubt as you're doing it. You know that saying, those that say you can't do things should get out of the way while you're doing them. There's some sort of a saying like that. The doubter, while you're doing it, people will say, that you can't do that. Oh, I'm doing it. Move. Move out of my way. So I can see that God's will is in each and every one of us if we allow it to be. If we move our will out of the way, get out of the way, and let God do it. Let God fight the battles. And sadly, we don't have enough faith. It's scary, isn't it? It's scary. When you're in a situation, you're a lawsuit, or you're, God knows what it could be, It's scary to say, all right, God, you got to fight this battle because I don't know what to do.
I don't know how many people in here have actually been faced with something very serious and you actually did rely on God in the moment. And I have a couple things that have happened to me, and one was very scary. It was about 11 o'clock at night. Before I went to bed, I was going to take this handful of vitamins. And I always take a lot of vitamins at once. And this time I added just a couple more and threw them in my mouth, took a gulp of water, and they all literally stuck right in my throat. I couldn't get a breath in or out. And in that moment, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to die right here and my little boy's going to see me. It was really scary. And so all these things run through your head, and all I did, I meditated. I just stopped and literally went inside. I don't know why I'm getting emotional. And I just sat there. I couldn't breathe. And I just gave it to God. And all of a sudden, I opened my mouth, and these vitamins come flying out of my mouth. I wasn't coughing. They literally were like being pulled out of my mouth, one after another. Like, it was the most amazing thing. And when it was all said and done, I knew I did not get those vitamins out of my mouth. But in that moment, in the moment of absolute knowing that you're going to be done here, I didn't race for the phone. I just went straight to him. And he took care of it.
So what are we willing to give up to get closer to God? I think everyone needs to ask themselves that question honestly. And you know what? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. If you remove one little thing at a time, you inch like an inchworm closer to your Father in heaven. Thanks for coming. See you next week.